Good morning, everybody. My name is Gustave Choto. I'm with Building Point Pacific, a Trimble partner. And today we are going to be covering the last part of our webinar series, Trimble GCEstimator webinar series. Just as a quick review, our first webinar was on WinEst, our database-driven software. Our second was on Takeoff Manager, VICO Office Takeoff Manager, which is a powerful 2D and 3D takeoff tool. Part 3 was covering VICO Document Controller, basically leveraging the power of iterating on a design and being able to take the quantities and the design and make sure that you have your estimate in lockstep with the current design. And today we're going to actually talk about how to tie it all together, basically leveraging VICO Office and WinEst in conjunction and making sure that the quantities that you are getting from either your 3D model or 2D takeoff are in lockstep with your estimate. So I'm going to run through a few slides here before we get started with our demonstration. I wanted to cover some of today's challenges in estimating. One of the things that we're seeing in the marketplace now, especially with all the sources of information, multiple data sources, meaning we're having to use 2D takeoff. We're also having to take 3D quantities as well. And there really isn't a product out there that can really respond to both types of input. We have some great 2D takeoff tools out in the market. We also have some great 3D tools, but nothing that really complements each other. And from what we saw in our last session, where we could actually take a 3D model and overlay a 2D drawing and make sure that our design and our model are in lockstep with each other. But now we can actually make sure that whenever we don't have quantities from a 3D model, we can complement those with our 2D takeoff. And why would we want to do that? Because as we all know, 3D does not always have everything that we need. Sometimes maybe we get a superstructure model or a substructure model, but we have no interiors model. So that's where we can leverage the power of the 2D takeoff on screen. And as I'll show a little bit today, one of the powers of being able to use 2D takeoff within VICO is the ability to create formulas within the 2D takeoff, and also being able to snap to lines and make sure you're accurate with your takeoff. Another one of the challenges that we're seeing is being able to learn and deploy multiple estimating applications. A lot of companies right now are using several solutions to try to accomplish one goal. They basically have one estimating solution for 2D inputs, another one for 3D quantity inputs, and very little integration between the two. Basically, pushing data from one to the other can be laborious. Rework as well. So one tool to manage and analyze multiple iterations of the 3D model. As we looked at in our last session, we're able to evaluate two different models of the same project and quickly isolate the differences, whether they're quantities or just in a design change. Also, with GCEstimator, we give you one tool to manage and analyze multiple iterations of the 2D plan set. So it's just in the same fashion that we compare the 3D model, we're able to also compare 2D documents, either with our virtual light table using overlay, or our virtual slip sheet using our slider mode, where we can slide back and forth and see the differences quickly between one drawing and the other. And all this basically is with the goal of keeping your estimate in lockstep with the current design iteration. And that's what we're going to show today. So introducing GCEstimator, one tool to do takeoffs, 3D and 2D, one estimating database for 3D models and 2D plans, one tool for 3D models and 2D version comparison. And really one of the keys, and I think what a lot of contractors want, is the ability to use only one vendor. No longer do you have to go out to different vendors, different licensing. You deal with one person, and you're dealing with Trimble and building point. So we're here to support you. We're composed of professionals from the field. Myself came from a estimating project engineering background, and now I'm supporting our clients out there so they can accomplish their goals, leverage these tools, and create efficiencies in their estimating and pre-construction. Really quickly, wanted to cover how we support LCOM and estimating progression with our tool. Basically, with the Trimble suite of pre-construction, we can actually create feasibility budgets within VICO and also within ModelLogix, which is our conceptual estimating tool that we've done a previous webinar on. We can develop that conceptual estimate. We can push that into our detailed estimating tool, WinEst. We can create a job cost budget, bring that cost back into ModelLogix for reuse, basically leveraging your IP, which is what it really is, the way you work, what you have in your history, not an average of the country, but actually your work. And the idea here is that it's a living, breathing information that most of the time gets lost. Once a job's done, nobody captures anything. Once an estimate is done, it gets filed away. With these tools, we're able to give that information new life. And just to recap from our first session, a little bit about WinEst. So WinEst is our robust, database-driven estimating solution. The power is really having a cost library in the background that you can rely on, that's filled with formulas, whether it's an item or an assembly. Assembly being a collection of items that are associated with each other that are consumed based on a parent quantity. And I'll jump in a little bit more what that really means. And one of the really powerful features of WinEst is actually collaboration, being able to have multiple people in the same project at the same time. So now, if you have an office in LA, one in San Francisco, but you want to leverage those two estimators that are in different offices on the same estimate, you can. We can assign different sections to different estimators and lock those in so they can see all the project, but they can only change their assigned sections. And the same with the rest of the users. So that gives you comfort that even if you have multiple people in there, they can only affect what has been assigned to them. Talk a little bit about the MS SQL cost library. So the library, this is where really the crux and the heart of WinEst is at. We can leverage a Microsoft SQL cost library, meaning if you have external software, you can actually pull data from your library through SQL. And the other power is that your library can be as big or as small as you want. There is no limit really in terms of line items and information that you can carry in that database. Another one of the really important parts of WinEst is our WBS sorting and reporting, being able to slice the dice the data as you need and seeing it the way you need it, the way that it speaks to you. Maybe you'll have a report for an owner, maybe a report for your field crews, maybe a report for your CEOs, maybe a report for your estimators for review. And with one click of a button, you can flex that data intuitively and quickly. And our filter views, and this also another very powerful feature is the ability to flex it right away. All these buttons can be pre-programmed. The ones you use the most can be there for you. There's also a host of other filters that you can use. And a filter essentially is a report. And WinEst works really big on what we call WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. So if you create a view and you like what you see on the screen, you can quickly export that out to Excel or PDF or even HTML. So now let's jump into a little bit of the integration with the 2D and 3D. As we covered in our previous sessions, the power of VICO Office, which is part of our GCEstimator suite, is the ability to be able to pull in 3D models from various sources. As we know, some architects like SketchUp, others like Revit. our structural engineers are designing in Tekla, other architects in ArchiCAD. So instead of having to install all these viewers or buy all these products, with VICO Office, we can publish these models into VICO Office so that you can analyze the data. You can quantify it, you can iterate on design, and whenever the 3D model doesn't have all the information you need, we can supplement it with 2D Takeoff. A very powerful 2D Takeoff. You can snap to lines, and you have all your counts, areas, volumes, linear. And one really nice thing that I'll show you is being able to create formulas within those conditions, if you will, or takeoff items, as we call them. And the main focus of today is going to be the integration of VICO Office and WinEst, which is our GCEstimator suite. So now we can leverage all those quantities from the model and from our 2D Takeoff and link them to our estimate. So we can stay in lockstep as we iterate. Whether we iterate into design changes, we can see what has happened and if anything has fallen out of sync. And we can quickly estimate a slab on grade and intuitively add all the items you need to build that up. And the final piece is reporting. Being able to push out a professional looking report in the way that you need it to look. WinEst comes with tons of reports that are ready to go at the fingertip, but there is a lot of power within WinEst to create custom reporting as well, whether it's through XML, Excel, or HTML. And we also have third-party integration. So say if you're already using an on-screen takeoff tool, OnCenter's on-screen takeoff, we have an ability to connect those quantities as well. We also have direct link into Primavera P6 or Microsoft projects. So now you can take all your estimate items and push them into your scheduling program as a starting off point and consume those productivity rates so that you can get a nice baseline schedule to start from. And the unprecedented audit history is the last part I'm going to cover here in this slide. The ability to be able to click on any quantity you see in the estimate and know with confidence where this came from. So as you see here on the screen, we can see how the item was created. It was merged from a different estimate. And then there was a change from 0 to 1.2 by fill down. And then it was edited from 1677 to 2000. So at any point in time, if you have any doubts as a senior estimator or as an estimator whether or not you have the right quantity or where the quantity came from, you can see it quickly and intuitively just by double-clicking on any item. So without further ado, let's jump into the GCEstimator suite. So the very first window I want to bring you into here is our VICO Office suite. Here in this particular module, this is what we're calling our WinEst VICO integrator. What we see here on the left is our 3D model. Over here to the right, we have all our takeoff quantities from the model. And probably, I'm not sure if we have some 2D. If we don't, we can create a few. Down here is where our estimate is. We have no estimate open, but I currently have WinEst here on the other screen. If you had two screens, ideally, most estimators work with two screens. The idea would be to have WinEst on one screen and VICO on the other. So I've got an estimate open here, and all I need to do is click Open Current Estimate. So now what it's done is basically giving me a window into WinEst. I've already added an assembly into my estimate, a slab on grade, and when I add an assembly into the estimate, and I can really quickly show you for those of you that might have missed our first webinar. Within WinEst, we have three views: takeoff, sheet, and totals. When I add assemblies, I want to be in takeoff. I can do a view into my cost library here by pressing Add, and I have two ways to look for items, either by item or assemblies. Assemblies are a faster way to estimate. You basically take a collection of items and associate them together to create an assembly. So why don't we, let's take cast in place column here. So now I've created this assembly previously, and I basically set it up to ask me questions. So every assembly essentially is 100 assemblies because the permutations of the different variable choices make it several assemblies. So let's stick with most of this. Let's do 5,000 psi concrete. Let's do a 28-meter boom. And why don't we do a sandblast finish? We click accept. We pick our labor rate table we want to use. And now all these items from former rectangle column, resteel column concrete, place column, all the way down column finish have been associated as an assembly together. The idea being that these items are consumed at a certain rate based on my parent quantity, which would be my cubic yardage. And the same with my slab on grade. So now that I have two items in my estimate, or two assemblies in my estimate with various items, I have about 25 items. I can toggle back to my VICO Office WinS integrator here. So I have my model here, I have my estimate down here as I mentioned, and I have all my takeoff quantities. Over here to the right, we have what we call our WinS takeoff palette. And this is really what makes the connection possible. This is the crux and kind of the heart of integrating these two tools together to create one powerful tool. I can refresh my estimate, make sure I get that column back. First thing I want to do, I'm going to select the assembly that I want to estimate. I want to find the corresponding item from my 3D model. So we have a couple ways we can do that. Just scroll down here and look for my slab on grade, which is there it is, cast in place slab. Let's see if we have any others. Yeah. So now what we can do is actually, oh, here it is. We can open up, we hit the plus sign there, and this is where we can access what we call our construction caliber quantities. And I wanted to just cover this point really quickly here, kind of a little bit of a review from our previous session. When we bring models into VICO Office, the real power and basically the premium, the reason why you would even want to bring models here into VICO Office is the ability to run algorithms on the elements from the model. And what that really means is when we are modeling in an authoring tool, for example, Revit, we have tools, we have families that we can use. In this particular case, I have a slab. So I built a slab in Revit, for example, or in Tekla. VICO Office will recognize that that is a slab and then basically run an algorithm to extract what we call construction caliber quantity. So what is a construction caliber quantity? To me, a construction caliber quantity is a quantity that I can actually use to estimate. For example, if I were to take some surface area of a slab in Revit, Revit would actually combine the whole thing, give me the top, side, and bottom, which really doesn't give me any information that I can use as an estimator. If I am, for example, a concrete contractor, I want to know what the edge surface area is so I can just form the edge surface area. I may want to know what the bottom surface area is so I can add my vapor barrier or sand or rock. I may want to know my top surface area so I can cure. And I want to know my height because I want to get the volume. So moving on to connecting our quantities to our estimate. Here I've opened up slab on grade. It's identified as a slab. I've opened it up, and now I can see all the quantities. As the moment that VICO Office recognized it was a slab, it gave me a count, edge perimeter, a hole, count, a hole perimeter, net bottom surface area, net top surface area, edge surface area, hole surface area, net volume, And one really nice feature I'd like to show you here. The moment I activate my isolation mode, I can actually go through these items and see it will highlight for me what area is being calculated. So I clicked on that top surface area. Now right away I can see what that is. Highlighting edge surface area. Now I can see exactly what that is. Bottom surface area. I can look underneath. And really quickly with confidence, I can gain a lot of confidence by visually seeing exactly what's being calculated. So I'm not just trusting the model, but I'm confirming it. And I can see exactly what it is that I'm about to add to my estimate. So I know there's a lot of hesitation in the estimating community about using models. And the whole idea behind VICO Office was being able to take that fear away and give confidence and replace it with confidence by being able to visually see what exactly you're adding to your estimate. So those days of just trusting the bin guy to give you the quantities are gone. You can analyze your own models. You can see what quantities are being calculated. So now let's move on. Now that I've kind of given you an overview of how we calculate quantities, what these quantities really mean, what we're looking at down here, which is our estimate. Let's move into our Winners Takeoff palette. So the moment I selected my slab on grade, here my assembly, the very top line, I'm given some questions here. These are the key quantities that my estimate needs in order to calculate this slab. So I need area of slab, volume of slab, edge length, joint length, and depth of base. And if I look over here at my construction caliber quantities for my slab on grade, I can pull all those quantities over. So area of slab, let's grab the top surface area. It's asking me for volume of slab now. I have that right here, 1056. And as you can see, it's starting to associate those items here with these items from the assembly. Now we want edge length. Joint length. Depth of base course has already been selected, 8 inches. So at this point, it's still not in my estimate. I am going to get one more opportunity to review it and make sure that I'm okay with it. So now I can see here I got 55,000 square feet. I click on it, it's telling me, highlights exactly which one it's pulled. So I can go really quickly and review, make sure that I've got the right thing. So volume of slab, pulling the correct one. Edge length, it's okay, edge perimeter. Joint length there. And depth of base course was a manual entry because that is the spec that we selected in our assembly when we added it to the estimate. Now down here at the bottom is the magic button here that we can press. Now we've brought in all those quantities into our estimate down here. I'm not going to pop over just yet, but let's do the column as well. So here, let me collapse that, and let's find our column. Here we are. So we have 449 columns. I've selected my assembly down here, and it's asking me for a few key quantities here. So I want vertical surface area, which is here. And you can see, as you can see, all of the columns here and all the highlights of what area is being calculated. So now I can see all the way around this column, and that's what's being calculated. Now I want to associate that with my assembly. I'm going to drag that over. I also want my top surface area, and if I turn my model here a little bit, see what's being included. So now I got all those quantities. Drag it over. And the last piece is the volume of our columns. And I can go ahead and just double check here, make sure I'm getting the right things. And I go back to update to the estimate. So now, if we toggle back to our database here, our WinS database estimating sheet, you can see these quantities have been pulled over. And if I wanted to know where these quantities came from, I'll double click, and I can see that I added the item via the database browser, and these quantities were brought in. It will even tell me the model that I brought it in from, and also the element that gave that item or assembly its quantity. So why don't we add a few more items? So one thing that we can do, we added items from WinS previously, but we can also do that here from our estimate, from VICO Office. And one thing before we do that, one of the powerful features of WinS is being able to slice and dice the data. We talked about estimate sheet view. And one thing that we can do here is get those familiar 3 buttons here. So we can leverage those estimate sheet views. We can also see a totals page. We can set the sheet filter. So say maybe we'll want to see the job in CSI format. Now we can see it in that way. Maybe we want to see a summary instead. And then we can also go back here into our takeoff view. All right, so what we're going to do here is actually just literally drag. If I see an element up here that I want to estimate, it's not in my estimate right now, but I can just drag it over. There is no mapping, so then I can map these so that I don't need to do this dragging and over quantities every time. In this particular case, I haven't mapped it yet. But I dragged it. I got my familiar database browser from WinS. I have all my, I think these are pile caps here, correct? Pile caps. So now what I want to do is actually find my pile caps here in my database browser. Got a few ways to do it. I could have searched through the browser, but you know what? I can just type in pile, finds exactly the one that I want. And double click. Those questions again, it's asking me. I get choices here. Maybe the spec's calling for 4,000 PSI, and maybe I wanted to do a concrete line pump instead. We click accept. All these items are going to be added into my estimate. Pile cap formwork, resteel, basically rebar, our concrete, our pile cap concrete line, stripping for our piling, and then finishing up top of the footing. Now we finish. Click OK. Now that item is here in my estimate. So that kind of cuts out a step. Some people like to build up their estimate in WinS, fully add all the items, and then just link them. But sometimes once you've already done your 3D takeoff here, it's nice just to drag it over, and then you kind of cut out a step. So now I'm expand my pile cap here and open up my key quantities, my construction caliber quantities. And what my pile cap assembly is asking me for is my top surface area, edge surface area, and volume of pile caps. So I'm going to take my top surface area here, drag it over, edge surface area to form my edges, and then also my volume. So now I can update to the estimate, and now my quantities have been updated. So let's pop back into WinS and kind of see what is taking place here, because a lot of what we're doing in terms of quantity takeoff is happening in VICO. But once we're done in VICO, we've got the quantities that we need. WinS is really where we want to manipulate the data. And this might be a little bit of review if you saw the first session, but I think it's worth showing again. Sheet view. So sheet view is basically our filters view, our reporting view, where we can actually isolate the data. We can look at our labor items, material items, equipment, subcontractor. If we have locations, we can look at the project by location. And I think I have an estimate open here. I think it kind of shows that a little bit better. We have location summary, so we've added metadata to the line items. So we've given them intelligence, we've given them a location. So we can look at the project based on those locations. So I can tell my owner with confidence, this is what your building is, this is what your canopy, your foundation costs, and quickly isolate those costs. Being able to manipulate the data is very key. And this is really where WinS shines, is being able to slice and dice the data with the click of a button. I've literally clicked the button within seconds. I'm looking at it in unit format. I can look at it in unit format summary. I can look at it in 95 CSI, summarize that CSI, master format summary. And I also have tons of other filters. And I can create more filters. So if there's something some way that I want it to look, whether I want the font to look a certain way, or certain columns to be in there and others not, we can do that quickly just by editing a filter or creating a brand new filter. Our totals page. So no estimate is complete until you've added your markups and your indirects. And WinS gives you the ability to add markups and actually be very precise and almost a surgeon at adding markups. And this is something I really like to show, because no markup, every markup can be, every contractor wants to add markup in a different way. Sometimes you want to mark up just your labor, just your material, or just your equipment, or maybe you just want to mark up your division 1, and maybe just division 1 and just labor. So here with WinS, we have a few different ways to add it. We can add a type, a lump sum, a percent, per hour, a margin, a bottom line. Bottom line percentage basically is calculating off the very bottom and reiterating on itself. Let's just add a percentage here. Say, let's do a 10%. And here is where what I talked about. We can actually restrict it to a certain range. Let's say, hey, all we want to mark up is our cost, our division 1 GCs and GRs. So I can select from project managers all the way down to electrical permits. So now only the markup of that 10% will be added to these sections. Maybe all I want to mark up is my labor, my project manager, superintendents. I want to add a little 10% on that, so I can make a little more money on my labor. Click OK, and now I've marked up my estimate, and I can also just say, hey, this is net markup on division 1 labor, or management, or whatever you want to call it. We'll click OK. And when we want to move into a reporting mode where we want to give, say, our client their sale price, the client comes to you and says, hey, I want to know what I'm paying for each of my divisions. And maybe you don't want them to know what your markups are. Maybe you want to give them that sale price. So we give the ability here within WinS to allocate, basically distribute those costs, those either by a net allocation. So let's look at, keep your eye on this price here, or the $59,000 for our general requirements. We can allocate our net costs. So now that price now includes all the net markups that I've added. I can also add all my markups if I select gross cost. So 86,911. So now that is my total sale price. Now when my owner asks me, hey, what am I paying for concrete? 107. Everything's included. That is my sale price. All right, so we talked a little bit about using our 3D, and the 3D is amazing because it really can give you tons of data at your fingertip. Not only that, you can be confident in the quantities because you can evaluate them here on the left-hand side, viewing exactly what you quantified. But there are times when we don't have information in the model that we need, and that's why we can supplement with the 2D takeoff. So I'm going to transition over here to my takeoff pad, which is basically my on-screen takeoff. Well, I'll be able to view a PDF, create a takeoff item, and snap to lines and create quantities. So let me collapse a little bit here. And what I'm going to do is create a takeoff quantity. Before I do that, really quickly, this might be a little review for some of you. Our document registry here, this is where we can iterate on our design. We have all our PDFs. We have all our models here. Here I can just drag, let's say I want to estimate this particular drawing, A101, 100% CD, just drag it into the view. Now I have it here. Give myself a little more real estate. Put this down. And now I want to create a new takeoff item. So what we're going to do here, let's say I want to calculate a slab. I actually have some template takeoff items. So I can say, hey, I want to actually do, let's see, where's my slab? Slab, here it is. And I want to add a new takeoff component. The moment I added that takeoff component, you'll probably recognize a lot of these here. Edge perimeter, hole count, hole perimeter, net top surface area. So what I'm going to use is leverage this net top surface area. As soon as I select that, I get some tools up here on my toolbar. I want to get an area, and I'm going to snap to points. So now I've just activated my takeoff tool, and now I can easily just snap to points. I'm just going to go around. So since we're snapping, we don't need to get super close. I know there's solutions out there that don't snap to lines. So this gives you a lot more accuracy and actually a lot more speed. Instead of trying to guess around whether or not you got the right, whether or not you got the correct line. Did it go over again? I accidentally clicked the wrong area there. So you can see I'm snapping right in. The quantity's been taken off. So I have a total of 32,154. So here's where the power really comes in. So now what I can do is let's give our slab some height. So what I want to do is I'm going to actually add a takeoff quantity. Click OK. And drag this over. And I'm going to give this slab a height. Say slab height. And we're going to say it's 6 inches. So we'll pick our unit of measure. Here it is, square in inches. I don't want square inches, I want inches. Feet, inches, there we go. I'll change that to 6. All right, so I've taken off the slab. I've got 35,000 square feet. I give in the slab a height, which is 6 inches. So now we can start pulling some data here. I talked about kind of the unprecedented formula, the possibility of creating formulas within a takeoff item, which is very rare within. I don't know of a takeoff tool yet that can do what I'm about to show you here. So I got the net top surface area, highlighting it for me there exactly what I've got. I want to get the net volume. So what I'm going to do here, if I click on that quantity area here, I get a little button here, FX, which means formula. What's popped up is a takeoff quantitative formula calculator. So what I can do is actually leverage quantities that I've taken off. So what I want to get is the net, what do I got? Top surface area, hit the plus sign, brings that guy in there. I can use operators that I use in Excel, so I'm going to use the multiplication. And I'm going to multiply that by my slab height. Now, what I can do is click OK and watch this quantity here, net volume. 7,145 cubic yards. I just calculated the net volume just by adding that, multiplying those two quantities together. Now maybe I want to get the edge surface area. Again, since I've got this area already, I can quickly get the perimeter. So let's find the edge perimeter here. So instead of actually clicking along the line again and trying to get that perimeter, since I've already got that area, I can click here in this quantity and get perimeter up here. So I can leverage the click offs that I've already done. And if I go back here, I can select the area I want to get the perimeter from. And as you can see, it's been taken off for me. I've got 793 linear feet. So now I can take that quantity and grab my surface area. Edge surface area here. I want to open up my calculator again. I'm going to take that edge perimeter that I just pulled, add my multiplication operator, and I'm going to multiply it by the slab height. Voila, 4,762 square feet. So now what I've really done here, I've taken one click off. I've clicked on literally 4 corners, and I was able to pull volume, edge length, edge perimeter, edge area. So now I can leverage a lot of the quantities that I'd already created previously. So now I can take these quantities and leverage them in my estimate. So why don't we let's add another slab on grade. We move back to my emptier estimate and add a slab on grade. Let's see here what we got. Concrete formwork. No, that's not what we want. Actually, we want to be in assemblies. My apologies. Hierarchy. Concrete flat work. I'm going to find my slab on grade. This time, let's just accept all the defaults, all my items there, add them in, accept, move back to VICO. And what we're going to do is transition back to my WinEst integrator. So what I'm going to do here, I want to open up my current estimate, got it down here, and find the assembly that I just added in. It's empty, there's no quantities. And I want to find the takeoff quantity that I just did. So I have a slab here. And now I can feed those same quantities over. As you can see, I didn't get as many data points as I did from my 3D model, but I don't really need all of those. So what I really want here is the area of my slab. I want the volume of my slab, the edge perimeter. We don't have any joint length. We could have taken one off if we wanted to. We didn't. And the depth of the course has already been selected here. So now, as you can see, we used almost the same quantities we did before from the 3D model, and now we can update to the estimate. And our assembly has been quantified. We can double click here, and we can see how that quantity was added again. So back to our PowerPoint slide here. That is our GCEstimator integration with VICO Office and WinEst. And I hope that today you've seen the power of leveraging 3D quantities and 2D quantities in the same estimate. And it's something we didn't have time for to do today was to do a little more iteration. So maybe in a next in a following follow-up webinar, we'll be able to show how if once we're iterating on a design, say we've gotten those quantities from our design, from one of our original designs, and we get another design from our designer. We got new quantities, and we can see how we can lock, since those elements have already been identified, we can lock those into those line items in the estimate. And if they have changed, we can view the differences and see what is out of sync. And the power there is knowing that you are estimating the right quantities and that you are giving your client the correct estimate, reducing risk and increasing accuracy and efficiency. Well, it's been a pleasure having you guys and showing you GCEstimator Suite, the 4 parts. Just to review again, we reviewed WinEst in depth in our first webinar. We reviewed Takeoff Manager in depth in our second one, and Document Controller and the power of being able to use our hybrid mode to view 3D models overlaid with 2D documents. And today we've shown you the integration of the estimating portion with the Takeoff tool. If we have any questions on the, okay, here we go. We got a couple questions here. One of the questions here, do you need a model or can you just use the 2D Takeoff tool to estimate? Absolutely, you do not need a model. If you don't have a model and all you have is 2D documents, you can absolutely just estimate. What I showed you there, the workflow of doing Takeoff, you can grab all the quantities from there. I mean, and that happens a lot. I mean, we know that not every project is going to have a model. The idea there with VICO is that you're future-proofing, so you have the ability. And I would challenge the contractors out there. Ask for those models. 90% of the architects out there are designing in Revit. Revit is a model-based software. What they're really giving you when they're giving you the 2D is just an output of the model. Some designers are a little more hesitant. As we know, models are not contract documents. But from what you've seen there, getting the quantities from the model was literally a click of a button. So that is really the power. So I challenge you guys, ask for those models. We have contractors out there, actually, they're estimators, are modelers. They'll take a 2D drawing and quickly create some rudimentary models. We see that a lot with concrete, actually, self-performers. They'll do some quick modeling and create some pretty rudimentary shapes, but the power is there to leverage those quantities, and then you could iterate on those designs pretty quickly. If you can click off on a drawing, you can create a model. It's that simple. Just with a little training, we can do it in SketchUp, we can do it in Revit, we can do it in Tekla for you. Well, let's see here. We got any other questions? Okay. Can you scale the drawing like you do an on-screen takeoff? Absolutely. That's something I didn't cover there. That is the assumption, though. We could literally find a dimension on that drawing, give it a length, click 2 points. Your drawing has been scaled, so you can use it with confidence, knowing that you got the right scale. Okay. See, you talked. Okay, we have a question here regarding our cost modeling software. So we didn't get into ModelLogix, but just to give you a quick overview, ModelLogix is a conceptual estimating tool. We had a previous webinar, and I can send you here the person here that sent that. I can send you the link to that old webinar, so you can view it. Essentially, the idea is you're leveraging your old history. For example, that estimate that we created, we can push it into ModelLogix. We can log it in, give it some intelligence. We can tell it it's an office building, give it a time, a location, and the next time we're estimating an office building, we can leverage those costs to create what we would call a napkin sketch estimate. You have a client that calls you up, says, hey, I want to build a 10-story office building. All I know is that it's this size and this square footage. You can quickly leverage your IP from old projects and re-leverage it for the future and quickly give them a response without exhausting hours and hours of your estimator's time. All right, well, that concludes our webinar today. Thank you for joining us, and hope to see you at our next one. We don't have one scheduled yet, but we'll be having some more coming. Thank you for joining us for Fridays with Building Point Pacific. So it's a pleasure to have you, and please contact me if you have any questions. I know I don't have my email up here, but I can quickly just type it in here for you. It's gchoto@buildingpointpacific.com, and my phone number is 510-421-6588. And I'm happy to talk with you. I'm big on mentorship. Like I mentioned, I came from the construction industry. I've been working in construction for the last 15 years, most of that time as an estimator. So I really understand the pains of an estimator and the struggles and the things that we go through. And, you know, especially when it comes to leveraging models and doing takeoff and creating estimates. So I'm happy to kind of share with you lessons learned from what I've learned through my career, and also things that I'm learning from my clients every day as well. You know, I learn from you, and I'm able to fortunately share that with, you know, the community at large. And I think the estimating community is kind of a brotherhood. So, you know, we don't have secrets. If there's tools out there, we share them. And I'm all for that, and I'm happy to, you know, to talk with you guys online, offline, and do even little one-on-one sessions here with the software. And if you have questions, I've, you know, quite a depth of experience with a lot of other estimating tools as well. So I'm happy to, even if it isn't one of ours, I can kind of give you some guidance there. All right, well, enjoy the rest of your Friday. Have a great weekend, and we will see you at our next session. Bye.